Hi, I'm John Grundy. I'm from Monash University. I'm presenting to you this evening, my time, our paper, Evaluation of an Augmented Reality Approach to Better Understanding Diverse End-User Website Usage Challenges. It's work done by two of my students, Min Vu and Shuki Wyman, and I'll be the one presenting for you. I'll start off with the motivation for the work. So users have many challenges. They have sometimes color blindness, blurred vision, tunnel vision, sometimes no sight. Many have hearing impairments of one sort or another. Number of cognitive challenges. People who have ADHD, neurodiversity, dyslexic, dyscalculia, perhaps short-term memory impairment. Some of these challenges people are born with, some of them they acquire through injury or sickness. And some have motor skill issues, not being able to move a finger or mouse to select items with precision, or having tremorous movements and so on. And there are many others as well. Now, websites that are created without considering these issues are very difficult, even sometimes impossible to use. What we wanted to do in this work is help developers who don't have these challenges or don't have the skills or background of developing websites with these challenges to be better able to support these diverse end users. We wanted to understand what the key challenges that users have from a number of these perspectives. And we wanted to provide, or at least evaluate, how we might support developers in testing whether websites support those users, and if they don't, how they might go about improving it. So there's a number of approaches to do this. First of all, we could have a design process, an evaluation process that tries to include users with a very wide range of accessibility challenges, possibly some users with not just single challenges, but multiple challenges, and include them in website design, development, and evaluation. Of course, this is very challenging, first of all, finding that range of stakeholders, but then going through the design, development, and evaluation process with them is going to be very time-consuming, very challenging. We could try and use personas, things that represent people with those different challenges I outlined previously. And again, that may assist developers in keeping in mind some of the different kinds of challenges their end users might have, and again, help them walk through in the shoes of the person and using the persona to guide them in using the website. One of the challenges, of course, and some studies have shown that personas don't always truly reflect how people with a particular challenge might really interact with the website. And of course, someone who's not got that challenge, trying to mimic it with a persona may not be at all effective or even accurate. We try and use virtual reality, so kind of a virtual reality headset, to mimic challenges. That might work for some challenges, but not so well for others. And also it might prove to be quite technically difficult to support that interaction with the website. However, there's some work that's been done to use virtual reality simulations of websites and apps to try and help developers understand interaction challenges of some end users. Another approach is to use augmented reality or some form of augmented reality. The most common one is to have a browser plugin or some sort of overlay augmentation that simulates one or more challenges. Probably the most well-known one are color blindness simulators, but there are a number of others as well. Again, they usually have some sort of overlay, so some sort of trap that takes input from the user with a keyboard, mouse, gesture, otherwise, passes through some sort of filter, and in the reverse, as the website or app tries to display output, passes it through a filter to try and mimic the kinds of interaction challenges that people might have. Some of these are configurable, so you can change the degree of challenge the simulator tries to mimic, and some are extensible, where you might, for example, combine challenges or add additional ones to the augmented reality simulator. Funkify is one such augmented reality simulator that's a Chrome web browser plugin, and it provides what they call a set of predefined personas or simulators that enable you to switch these on and see how a person with that challenge might interact with the website. And the Funkify simulators behave as input and or output traps that try and mimic the challenges of interacting with the website through input and output. There's ways of configuring these and ways of combining them in the premium version of Funkify. And there are various approaches, again, that it takes, generally a filtering type approach. Now, there are some limitations, and I'll touch on these shortly. Because it's a browser plugin, there are some things that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do in terms of truly representing how a challenged end user might perceive a particular website. So we chose 4 of the Funkify simulators or personas, one that simulates blurred vision, one dyslexia, one tremorous hand input with a mouse and keyboard, and one that simulates tunnel vision. We chose these to provide a range of different kinds of challenges, some that we're interested in and some that are quite different to each other, and some that are very common, for example, blurred vision. We chose 3 websites, the Commonwealth Banking website, the Amazon product search and buying website, and the Reddit textual conversation discussion Q&A community board website. Chose these to give a range of quite different website applications, a banking or finance one, a online shopping one, and a education community discussion information board. We identified a number of tasks for each one of these: logging in, searching for a product, opening a bank account, reading and contributing to a thread, and so on. And then we, for each of the Funkify simulators, walk through each of those tasks with the simulator switched on, tried to carry out the task, and tried to carefully note down the perception the software developer had when doing that with the particular simulator switched on. Then compared the experience that we had using the simulator to published works from medical or HCI or other literature describing how actual people with these challenges had manifested the challenge or perceived the challenge, particularly if interacting with websites or apps. So we wanted to find out what are the range of challenges that a tool like Funkify support. How do the simulations of such challenges actually manifest in a web browser-based augmented reality setting? And how well does this tool work with our selected websites when performing tasks? Does it fully and correctly simulate the kind of issue that someone with a particular challenge might have when trying to carry out that task with that particular website? We also wanted to compare that experience that we had using the Funkify augmented reality tool with documented evidence in the literature, either from studies in medical literature or studies with human-computer interaction users with challenges and particular websites. We also wanted to reflect on, does the software developer get some idea, some useful idea of how someone with such a challenge would experience that particular website carrying that particular task? And we wanted to get a sense of, could they empathize with the target end users' accessibility related challenges that are represented to them by trying to carry out the task with the website with that simulator switched on. We also were interested in whether we could support users with multiple challenges and how well they worked. So I'll give you a few examples from our evaluation experiences. First of all, Blurry Bianca. This is a blurred vision simulator, and essentially they're called a foggy filter. You can see an example there of the Commonwealth Bank app where someone is trying to find a particular service. You can get a sense of the blurredness. The intensity of the blurredness can be changed. And for most of the time, most of the web browser contents have that blurry filter applied. There are some exceptions. So you can see there with the pop-up menu, that's not blurred. So however Funkify is implementing the simulator, it works quite well for text and icons and buttons and so on that are rendered, but not with the browser-based pop-ups in this example. There's a few other ones as well. I also noticed that the control bar, the various controls in the web browser are not blurred out either, so they're still at their normal precision level. When you're using this, even on a fairly moderate setting, it's very straining. It takes a huge mental cognitive eyesight strain, very hard, particularly the text-heavy sites such as Reddit. And on the higher blurring intensity level, it's extremely difficult to read in and understand anything. Some things that help on the website, so the website design improvements, so contrasting colors, bolding, icons, big size. You can see here, you can get a good sense of things that are easy to locate based on the design of the Commonwealth Bank app here. So it's still quite a usable application, even with quite a high level of blur. Tunnel vision is much less common than blurred eyesight, but it's caused by a number of medical and potentially trauma conditions. This simulator provides, again, a kind of amount of tunneling, if you like, and the sort of the way the tunnel manifests. It becomes very hard to navigate very quickly, even with a moderate amount of tunnel vision being simulated. And at the higher settings, it's almost impossible. So certainly even the moderate settings, almost impossible to use, as you can see in the example. If you're not familiar with the layout and navigation of a website, it's very, very slow to use it. It does help if the website follows some norms, so buttons in certain places, logout button top right, and next page button bottom, etc. And also if it has a sort of agreed indentation, so you can see the indentation in the bottom of the Reddit in the tunnel vision. Doing things like product search is very difficult because the products are different sizes and rendered as such, and becomes extremely difficult to find anything on the page. Did find a number of issues with this simulator. It didn't work quite correctly. The Dyslexia simulator is one that tries to mimic a reasonably common challenge, but a challenge that manifests in actually quite different ways. So people experience dyslexia in very different ways. The Dyslexia Danny simulator in Funkify mostly scrambles words, although there's another option you can choose. And it's mostly only the page text that scrambles. You can see a couple of examples of where buttons aren't changed, contents of pop-ups are not changed, and so on. So the way it's implemented means that there's only some of the interface that's modified. Again, on higher settings, very unreadable, almost unusable. Although you can see there on the right, you can kind of work out what's being said in the Commonwealth banking application with a bit of effort. There are other things that, other ways that dyslexia manifests in hearing and writing and so on. This simulator doesn't touch on those. And it's somewhat unclear how you design to address this. And it's somewhat unclear how realistic this is versus the published literature and studies of people with dyslexia experience using websites. The Trembling Trevor simulator, or persona, simulates a tremorous hand movement when using the interactors, so the mouse and the keyboard. There's an adjusted amount of tremor, and with the mouse you get extra movement, random movements, unpredictable directions after you've finished moving it. Text heavy interactions become very, very hard, so this becomes very difficult to use the website. Small target selections, the radio buttons down the bottom, for example, are very, very difficult, if not impossible, on higher settings to interact with. Trying to log out again is extremely difficult. It's shown in the Amazon one bottom, so on the right, at the bottom of that pop-up menu. And requires some quite careful thought about either redesigning the interface, a number of those interactors removed and larger ones put in place, or perhaps alternate interfaces altogether. We thought potentially this could be modified to better align with medical literature that describes the way that different kinds of tremor manifest as users try to interact with computers. So from our experiments and analysis, we identified a number of potential improvements that could be made to the tools such as Funkify. So there are a number of other aspects of personas when we use personas in doing web design that actually would be very useful, we thought, to incorporate. So you could describe demographics of the personas, use cases, goals, etc., even for a particular domain, so for banking or online shopping or whatever. And that way there wouldn't just be a simulator, but would help in the management of personas throughout the design process. I thought sharing the personas, particularly persona settings across development teams would be very useful, many settings. And if one creates a number of personas based on the simulators, it'd be nice to provide some predefined intensities for these particular ones that might be relatively common in the end user population for the domain of the website. There's a broader range of challenges that would be nice to be simulated, and some of the sensitivities essentially make the web browser completely unusable, and some of those kick in quite low settings in the current design of Funkify, so that might need some rethinking. And there are some aspects of challenges that aren't or don't appear to be linked to how that has been described in user studies or medical literature. And we thought it would be nice to say where the actual design and the implementation of the filters was motivated by the particular studies. And again, perhaps even suggesting other studies that developers might find useful information from about the challenges being simulated. Combining simulators would be very useful. That's possible in limited ways at the moment. And also we thought including guidelines of how to address the challenge would be very helpful for developers. So if they see a particular problem using a website with a particular simulator switched on, having a set of guidelines associated with that simulator's persona, how you could improve the design and then trying that out would be very helpful. And the browser plugin approach has a number of limitations. So full application overlays, or even potentially for some challenges, a VR type simulator may be necessary to get a more accurate and more useful simulation approach. And there are a number of simulators that are not currently supported, hearing loss, dyscalculia, autism, and so on, that may be very useful for developers where there's a significant portion of the end user population that has a challenge like these. So we wanted in this work to help the design and evaluation of websites for challenge users, because it's a hard thing to do. Most developers don't have the particular challenges of these end users and struggle to understand what their impact might be. Augmented reality approaches provide some promise, and there are many of them that exist. Funkify is one that provides quite a wide range in this form of simulators or personas. They range in effectiveness and how realistic they are, and there are a number of limitations due to browser-based implementation. By using them, they do lead to some potentially very useful design improvements or the provision of alternative interfaces for some users. And we thought the combining of approaches using focus groups or design evaluation sessions with real challenged end users, personas, guidelines, and simulators would potentially significantly help development teams from a number of perspectives. Ultimately, one has to invest time and effort in supporting diverse challenged end users of one's websites, and this should be a more important and better supported aspect of web development than it currently is. I'd like to thank you all for listening to my presentation and thank the Australian Research Council for funding this research.